So today I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about something that I feel is currently missing from the game. As of 1.6, we have the addition of the Utopia expansion, and with the Utopia expansion, of course, came the first megastructures as well as habitats. However, I feel that there is a gap in between the construction of habitats as well as other structures in space. Obviously, we start out right now relatively basic with our standard stations, etc. So we got this bad boy over here. We have our standard major stations and whatnot. There's quite a lot of stuff there. However, then we make the jump to a habitat style approach. So for instance, if I go into my outliner here and I go to Bernard Star, well, there is our habitat. However, the jump from here to Ringworld is quite ridiculous. It's quite a large jump that I'm not necessarily particularly keen on. Sure, we can have the Strategic Coordination Center, but the jump to like Dyson Sphere and whatnot is quite large. So if we go into our particular Ascension perks here, what we have is this Galactic Wonders, which unlocks the various megastructures, Master Builders, which generates the build speed, and of course a Voidborn, which generates habitats. This is usually not the order that you would get these in, but bear with me. So the jump from habitats, or the stations to habitats, to Ringworlds, in my opinion, is too big. And I would like to suggest an additional intermediary that could also work with Voidborn. Introducing the following, and I'm currently running a mod here, so bear with me, like I mentioned before, the Planetary Ringworld. Now, the Planetary Ringworld by itself is a mini Ringworld. Now, I don't feel that it should necessarily work as a Ringworld on its own. However, this, in combination with, say, a space elevator, I feel would completely change the way we look at planets. So for instance, if we go into our ship designer, let's say we're at the start of the game, right? And we have only chemical thrusters. Chemical thrusters implies that it's going to take quite a lot of effort to get out of this orbital gravity well. And that by itself is perfectly fine, but it also means I feel that if you're running any sort of thrusters, it would increase the costs of, say, colony ships, because all those resources need to get off the planet into space and then move towards their final location. But ASpec, you may ask, what does this have to do with planetary rings? Planetary rings, in my opinion, could be a very nice little step on the way to megastructures, particularly Ringworlds, as basically a structure you could build around your world that could function in various ways, whether or not be a mini shipyard, a place to generate particular goods that do particularly well in 0G. What that would be, I do not know. But also a way of lowering the cost of, for instance, colonists getting off of that rock and getting into orbit. Because right now that is obviously not something that's simulated, and considering the game is very much focused on two things, which is planets and space, I do feel that adding the ability of building a planetary ring world would be rather nice, especially if you could specialize it over time. Because let's say that we have a colony, a construction ship in orbit here, and we want to build another megastructure, which is currently obviously not possible. But we currently have this habitat over here. And right now, in this particular demo, at least in this particular setup, this is purely a habitat-style approach. But overall, I think we could do so much more with this. Adding additional shipyards. Ghoulish Planetary Modifiers, for instance, adds precursor capital worlds that have the ability to double the amount of slots that you have to build ships on. And having one of these per empire, just one, would make things rather interesting. We could go, for instance, also into sci-fi. In Warhammer 40k, for instance, Mars has a metal ring around it, which is one of the primary shipyards for the Imperium of Man. And that by itself, I think, would gel very, very nicely in the Stellaris environment. Adding a ring world around a planet will allow you to build gigantic shipyards, maybe even double capacity of shipyards in one place. But yeah, the main reason, like I said, why I'm bringing this up is just I feel that there is a gap missing. Sure, the habitats are fine. I think they add more than enough. You can squeeze quite a lot of population on this with all the specialized districts and stuff like that. But let's see, like my thing would be, why wouldn't we able to, you know, do something like this? Right now, with our current technology, we could hypothetically build something like this. And a planetary ring world is far more feasible than, say, a stellar ring world, because, well, the amount of gravitational or the amount of materials needed for it obviously would be significantly less, and their tensile strength would also be significantly lower. So yeah, there would be quite a lot of stuff you could do with this, and especially if you could upgrade it slowly over time, similar to what we currently have with the station overview. Hey, and you can even reuse some of the assets that we currently have for Ringworlds. Give it a little bit of thought. What do you guys think? Ringworlds by themselves. Cool idea, bad idea. Would you like to see something to fill that gap between habitats and going straight up for megastructures, Dyson spheres, matter decompressors, and whatnot? Yeah, megastructures are really cool, and I really think that they have their place in the game. But right now, the gap between building these giant structures in the late game and building these habitats in a relatively early game is too big, and this would be a nice middle ground, I would say. Anyway, give it some thought. Have some comments below. See what you think. In the meantime, we're going to go wrap it up here, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.